Welcome back to the program. Well, you could say this is another good news story. Certainly, we've seen it as such. 17 students from the Pacific Lutheran University in Washington, the state of Washington in the USA, will take part in an internship program in Tobago. The social science students have been placed in various units in the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. The secretary for that section in the administration in the THA is Dr. Faith B. Israel, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Health. She's with us now. She's no stranger to these cameras and these facilities here at WESN. Good to see you, ma'am.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. It's an honor being here today.
All right. Do you miss it? Participating with the guys on
Do I miss it? I do. Those were simpler times, certainly.
Well, interesting. I like your honesty there. But and so let's get to this. There's some other things I would hope time permits us to talk about. That since you say that those were simpler times, you know, it's not what you do now is not as simple as that. And I want to get to that if time permits. But how did this? What do you call this? A program, a project, an intervention? How did this come about?
Certainly, this is actually not the first time it's happening in Tobago. A couple years ago, the students were coming. Are we having technical issues?
It appears so, but I heard you. So go ahead. It's probably the internet. Go ahead.
So yeah, right. So a couple years ago, we did have students coming from Pacific Lutheran. Because of COVID, they had to stop. But earlier last year, we got a call again and a visit from the principals indicating that they were interested in coming back to Tobago, that they had a large number who were just sitting waiting for this time. So it really is one of those feel-good stories because it's just students who are doing social sciences. So some of them may be in social work, some of them are in education, some of them are different aspects of social sciences. And they just wanted to get an opportunity to see what the real world looks like and outside of their normal space. So they decided to come to Tobago. We have placed them in various units within the division. They are also working with some of the NGOs that are within the space. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good opportunity for both the students and the individuals who they are paired with in the division.
So what do they take with them, you think? What have they been taking with them over the years that this has been in operation?
They've been learning how it really works on the ground. You know, when we are doing these things theoretically in our classrooms, they tell us that this may be a situation that you may come across, but they have the opportunity to actually interact with clients, to actually sit with the social workers sometimes when they are, you know, interacting with the clients, to help with the reports that are coming out of the interactions. They are in essence learning on the job while being mentored. And I think this is what all social science programs should include. As a matter of fact, when I went to school to do my master's and doctoral degree, I did quite a bit of this as well. So I can attest to how beneficial a program like this is when it comes to matching what you learn in the textbook to what you actually see happening on the ground.
Yeah. And on the other side of it, what are some of the things that they leave with the people in Tobago, the people with whom they interact and so on? What do you think?
Certainly. Well, the social workers and the other officers, because it's not just social workers they are interacting with, they have an opportunity to share. They have an opportunity to teach. They have an opportunity to learn, as a matter of fact, of different ways of thinking about things. Because again, these are students who are born and raised in the United States. We definitely do things differently. As it relates to culture and so forth. And they have the opportunity to recognize that, you know, what happens in Tobago is not necessarily the only way of doing things. It's not necessarily the only way of interacting. So I think it's a really good cross-learning opportunity. And we are going to venture into having some of our students in Tobago do a similar kind of internship like in other places outside of Tobago so that they can have that same experience sometime in the near future.
Yeah, and how, do you know to what how the university itself was chosen, or they chose Tobago? How did it work?
They chose Tobago. I really don't know how they chose Tobago the first time they did it several years ago, but they're the ones who picked Tobago. Of course, you know, Washington, US is certainly does not have the same temperature as we are experiencing here. So I thought, I know that was a critical factor, that it's nice and warm and sunny. As a matter of fact, a significant chunk of what they do here is spending time going to our, you know, tourism attraction and the beaches and the waterfalls and the forests and so forth. So I am not sure how they made the decision the very first year, which was several years ago, but they keep coming back.
Yeah, so this has been a sort of ongoing exchange kind of program. Do health professionals or health students from Tobago enjoy that kind of exchange on the other way, going up?
At this point, not at this point, but it is something that we are looking into building out. Because we do have quite a number of social protection students, you know, social work and psychology and so forth on the island. But it is something that we are exploring, how we can provide our students with the same kind of interaction, the same kind of learning experience that these students are getting.
Yeah. Are there any other kinds of programs, whether in the health area or otherwise, you know, in which the assembly and the administration is involved, you know, in partnerships like this with places outside?
Well, we are actually working towards doing it for some medical schools that are outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and they need a space to do their internship, looking at how, seeing if we can place them at the Roxborough Health Facility and the Scarborough Health Facility. But of course, you know, that takes a little bit more time, a little bit more setting up. We are not at that point just yet, but we are exploring those options. As a matter of fact, social work students frequently intern, social sciences, frequently intern with the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. There are students from right here in Tobago who have been doing their internship at the division. So this isn't a new thing in that regard. It's just that this is a relatively large group coming from a foreign space. So, you know, I guess it's highlighted a little bit more.
I want to ask you about the discussion as it relates to health in Trinidad at the moment has to do with the facing of the carnival while we watch for the further permeation of this new variant, what is called XBB 1.5 and so on. The discussion around where will that leave us after this carnival season? Are we in a position where we end up more vulnerable? How is that playing in Tobago?
Well, we're having the same discussions. We've actually been meeting. I've been meeting with my technical staff for over the last couple of weeks. We've been looking at the numbers over the last couple of weeks. What's important to know, though, is that this subvariant of Omicron, people will get infected. It actually does not make you sick, or it does not make you as sick as variants before. So, for example, when we were talking about Delta a year and a little bit ago, Delta was actually causing you to get very sick, to be hospitalized, to go into the ICU, and to die. This is a subvariant of Omicron. It is very infectious, but it is not causing you to be sick. As a matter of fact, what we've recognized that many of the cases that have been unearthed have happened not because the individual felt like they had flu-like symptoms and needed to go to the hospital, but it happened because they had a broken hand, for example, and that caused them to go to the hospital. And now that they're in the hospital, they were tested for COVID and we recognize that they are infected. So it is that kind of subvariant that we are looking at now. We will keep looking at the numbers. We will keep monitoring it. We will make changes to policy as is needed based on what the numbers are saying and and how the numbers show themselves. And we are going to make those decisions as we move forward. But at this point, we still need to be careful. We still need to do all of the things we've been talking about, washing your hands, sanitizing, wearing your mask and so forth, particularly if you are in those vulnerable groups. Wear your mask. If you don't feel well, definitely stay away, stay home, that kind of thing. But we are getting to the point where we are no longer thinking about COVID the way we did a year, 2 years ago, because we've learned so much about it thus far.
Well, in the first segment in the program this morning, I was talking with Dr. 𝙋𝙘𝙘𝙞𝙾𝙘 and he's suggesting that well, we could come out on the other side of this at the end of the carnival season worse than we're going in, because deaths have been rising and so on. Although the issue is that the impact is not as is predicted not to be as deadly as in the first generation of it. What's you say?
Well, certainly, as long as we have situations where we have mass gatherings, where we have more people interacting with each other, we will see a spike. So a spike is expected. The same way we basically saw a spike right after Carnival, the 2-3 week period, right? Not Carnival, Christmas, the 2-3 week period right after Christmas. That is where when you looked at the charts, you saw the numbers popping up. So we do expect to see a spike right after Carnival, the 2-3 weeks following Carnival. That is how the virus works. But, the part about the impact of it, that is the critical part, the impact of it. Is it causing our health system to fail? Is it causing so many people to go into the hospital so that we cannot treat with the other issues that we need to deal with in the hospital? Because that was actually one of the critical determining factors where we made the policy decisions to lock down and to keep people home and that kind of thing. So we have to take all of these things into consideration. We also have to recognize that there's also an economic factor as well. Yes, we could all stay home and not get sick, but then we don't eat, we don't recreate, we don't make money, and that brings many, many other issues as well. So it's one of those balances that we have to ensure that the public policies take into consideration the medical component, but it also takes into consideration the social and economic components.
Yeah, I want to pivot away from that a little bit and ask you about the performance of the administration in the context in which there was this internal internecine, I would say, a warfare between the Supreme Leader and the rest of you all. Yesterday we had in the program Ms. Diane Haddad, and she's caustic even in the best of times, but she had nothing positive to say about the performance of the administration to this point. How do you respond to that? She says nothing is happening as was expected to be happening.
Well, I am not sure what island she's living on, because we have had significant benefits happening. Of course, this was all happening in the middle of COVID and so forth. We have come in where we have done, let's say, in the education sector. We've actually done way more in terms of the actual volume and cost of school repairs within the last year. Again, because we've come out of COVID, the schools being closed for 2 years before. We've had to do the kind of work to get the schools back up and running. And we did that. We've had absolutely failing infrastructure as it relates to roads and so forth. We've had to deal with the natural disasters, because we've had in Tobago, I'm not sure if those of you in Trinidad were aware, for several weeks before Trinidad started experiencing a lot of rains and floods, we were experiencing the rains, the floods, the landslides, and we've had to deal with that. That's totally failing infrastructure. And we've been able to maintain that. We were able to bring off a very successful carnival in October after, coming into office and in less than a year deciding we are going to launch into this October carnival. That was extremely successful. Of course, there are things that we will change. It was the first time. We are learning as we go along, and we will improve. As it relates to healthcare, we now have a situation where we have over 300 people who've been waiting for cataract surgeries for the last 3-4 years have gotten the cataract surgeries free of course to them, because we know that these are the kind kinds of programs that need to roll out. And I can go on and on and on as it relates to different things that have been happening in Tobago over the last year. We have to remember, though, that it's a year. I am not sure, and I think I blame us in terms of when we campaigned and we gave people so much hope. I am not sure that people are being realistic in terms of what they expect us to do in a year versus what they expect, what has been happening. Another quick example, we turned TATCO, one of the agricultural companies, into a space that is actually making money. We actually found the Capital of Paradise, which is one of our large boats. And that Capital of Paradise has been going out. We got into it, we fixed it, and we've been sending it out. And it's made over $1 million over the last year. We did not even know where that vessel was before we came in. So to say that we have done absolutely nothing, I am really not sure where that is coming from. But when you ask the regular people on the ground whether they are seeing benefits, they would tell you, yes, they are seeing benefits. Of course, we want more. Everybody wants more. But to say nothing, I am a little concerned that you would say nothing has happened when, in fact, that is absolutely not the truth.
One of the points she and others have made over the last couple of weeks about people who were expecting to be promised that payments for provision of services one way or the other from the last administration to this one should have been taking place, and there's a deficit in that as well. And so a lot of
well, if we're talking about the contractors that are being part of the audit, I am sure everyone would be very, very, very suspicious if we came in and we said we were not paying all of it, we were not paying everything, because we recognize that several things were not right with how these contracts were given, with the work and the quality of work that was being done. Now, granted, the report of the audit is taking longer than we anticipated. That is an external entity that is doing the audit, and we will make those payments based on the reports of those things. But a man coming and telling you he owes you owe him $40 million for all of these things, there is no way we would just say, here is your $40 million when we can't even find the road that you are telling us you built. So let's be practical about this, and particularly for individuals who understand business, people who understand how finances work. We are in the business of running Tobago's finances, and we are going to do that as responsibly as we can. The contractors who are owing, they will be paid what is duly owed to them, which is not necessarily the figure that they are claiming is owed to them, but we will make it right for the people of Tobago, not just the couple contractors who are making noise.
So there are issues with trying to verify what you're presented with and what is acceptable and what meets what the obligations are.
We have situations where there were contracts where we did not even know what the scope of work was for the contract. So somebody is bringing a bill that says, this is what you owe me, and there is nothing that says this is what you should have done, this is what you were contracted to do. There isn't an actual signed contract by a duly authorized official that says you were duly authorized to do this work. In some of the instances, in some of the areas, for example, we can't even find the documentation that says this is the work you were supposed to do. And then when we look at the work that was done and we have our quantity surveyors looking at them and so forth, what is written on paper in terms of what you said you did is nothing close to what is in the facility that we are looking at. And we are now trying to marry these two things to have it make sense. So when we are making those comments about us not paying contractors, let us give all of the information about why we are delaying. And it's not like we're not going to pay, but we are delaying the process because we need to get it right.
Yeah, and what is the narrative about around the claim that in cases where there are contractors on the ground in Tobago who are in line to get some pieces of the pie, those pieces of the pie are going to contractors in Trinidad?
So yes, that is a claim that is downright false. The Secretary with responsibility for infrastructure, Mr. Trevor James, spoke about this several times. There are a few, maybe 3 or 4 large contracts that required the contractors to do the upfront financing, and they will not get paid for another year or 2 years, 3 years down the road. Those contracts were the ones that went to the large contractors in Trinidad. But if you listen to the Secretary of Finance, of Infrastructure, he will indicate that over 90%, 95% of the contracts that have been given out from his division has been given to Tobago-based contractors. So we are only talking about, when they make those statements, they are talking about the contractors that we did give to Trinidad contractors, but those are the contractors who we said to them, hey, yeah, this is a $10 million thing. We really have no money to give you right now. We need you to do the work, and you do the work and wait for a year, 2 years, 3 years before you get paid. And when you look around, most of the small contractors in Tobago did not have the capacity to do that. They would tell you they can't start the work until they get a mobilization fee. But we were still able to give up to 95% or so of the contracts given out at the division to small Tobago contractors. It's just that 5% or so that they are talking about, that making it seem that we are only giving Trinidad contractors work, which is absolutely, again, not accurate.
Yeah. So and you think your side is pushing back properly in response to some of these things, because the narrative suggests from this vantage point that the administration is not living up to the expectations that you yourselves created.
So what we have admitted, that we have been so busy trying to fix the colossal mess left by those individuals after 21 years, that we have not done a great job at PR. We have not done a great job at highlighting all of the mess that we've been seeing, or that we came into, and what we've been quietly in the background trying to fix. We have not done a good job at that, and this is something that we have promised, and we have started to do a better job at. So it is, I guess, partially our fault that we are not communicating the way we should have, but we are going to improve on that, certainly.
All right, we got to leave it there. Sorry about that. Dr. Faith B. Israel, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Health and Wellness at the Tobago House of Assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, before we push